Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, adnastana. I just dropped by the lodge to take care of some administrative duties and thought I'd stop for one of these while I was here. In this particular segment of Points of Light Radio, I will be answering your feedback from 2023. That was an exciting year, and we're having an exciting year so far. So, as soon as I'm done here, we'll deal with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Well, where do we begin? Let's go back towards the end of 2023. We investigated the Noble Order of Muscovites. A gentleman named Joshua Valencia said, "Hey, brother, I wanted to talk. I'd love to reach out to you. I have a book on different esoteric fraternities I'd like to send you. Sounds interesting? Funny thing, I've never received it." RDK, I interviewed this gentleman too, so you may want to look back in some of my previous segments of Points of Light Radio. I believe I interviewed him in 2022, but he said it's cool and interesting and looks like a great group. I might join, and it's easy to join. RDK, it is. They do the degree on. It's a 1 degree structure, and they offer the degree online. I think that's wonderful and very forward thinking. February 20th of 2023, I interviewed a gentleman about some of the great work the Oddfellows in Vancouver were doing to help the homeless. Emilio left some feedback, and he said, "In friendship, love, and truth, from the Oddfellows in Davao City, Philippines." I love what how Odd Fellowship has grown in the Philippines. I think that's wonderful. Albert Luna said, "Nice hearing stories from fellow brothers." And this is an odd fellow from Zamboanga City in the Philippines. Isn't that wonderful? I love how it's growing there. On March 11th, 2023, I interviewed Aaron Rasmussen Bates. He was a member of the Knights of the Maccabees. Libius90 commented on that. "Mr. Miller, thank you for these very interesting interviews. It's fascinating stuff. Do you plan to interview members of the Druids, Rockabites, Good Templars, Mechanics, or the Grange?" Well, I have interviewed the Grange. I've done the Mechanics turned me down in no uncertain terms. I haven't been able to get hold of the Rockabites or the Rockabites. Maybe I hope I'm saying that right, or the Good Templars. And I believe I did try to reach out to the Druids. I haven't heard anything yet. On April 21st, 2023, the segment was an interview I did with Bruce Penny. He was the Grand Master of the Royal Black Preceptories in Canada. My friend Aaron Bradley, my friend and brother Aaron Bradley from the United Kingdom, left some feedback. "As the worshipful master of my own Royal Black Preceptory over here in County Londonderry, Northern Ireland, may I express my fraternal greetings to you, Grandmaster Sir Knight Penny. I am an Orange, Royal Arch Purple, and Royal Black Institution lecturer, as well as an apprentice boy." Right? Among other things. And I think, I keep trying to interview Adrian Bradley, as you're going to see if he's going along. He leaves a lot of feedback. I'd love to interview him. And I love the feedback he leaves. I've actually contacted him on Facebook several times too. Adrian, brother, we've got to get together. April 8th, 2023, I interviewed Steve Dunkelberger and Phil Bacinas about the Dramatic Order of the Knights of the Khorasan. Dragonfly Queen left feedback that said, I came to this video after finding out my grandfather was in the Knights of Pythias and the Dramatic Order of the Knights of the Khorasan, and my grandmother was a nomad of Avraduca. I want to interview the nomads. I would, but there is no longer a local chapter. I hate that I don't know about any of this, okay, until I comb through news archives from our local paper. Right? I mean, you know what? I would love to interview the nomads of Avraduca. I hope I said that right. I'm so happy when people leave feedback like that. My grandmother was in this or something like that. That really, you know what? You really see where this podcast, I mean, where it's going and the influence it really does have. On April 22nd, 2023, Steve Dunkelberger returned and we fellowshipped and talked about the Fraternal Order of Eagles. The Catholic perennialist left feedback. You saw him before, haven't you? Said, it's very strange that there's a women's only auxiliary, but no male only Eagle fraternity. That is interesting, as these organizations are essentially becoming mixed, that there is still an all-female organization, but I don't expect that will last for much longer. On April 29th, 2023, Jethro Cheatham, the noble grand humbug and clamp patriarch of the Meek Stewart number 10 chapter, E Clampus Vitus, fellowshipped with me. Interesting segment, that one. Sergeant Rabbi left feedback. He said, I just joined E Clampus Vitus this month. My initiation is scheduled for May 2024. I hope this podcast helped your decision there, Sergeant Rabbi. And I'd love to know how that initiation went. I really would. I'd love to hear more about the chapter that you joined. On May 6, 2023, Toby Hansen appeared on my podcast, and he's the Grand Master and of the Grand Lodge of Washington and past Grand Patriarch of the Grand Encampment of Washington. He's the past Sovereign Grand Musician of the Sovereign Grand Lodge and current Grand Treasurer of the Grand Encampment of Washington. He also has a podcast called the Three Links Oddcast. And that was an interesting segment. We've revisited those organizations that he came here to talk about, or that he was part of. Springfield Lodge left feedback. It's good to see, Toby. My treasurer in our encampment is now this year's Grand Patriarch of the Grand Encampment of Massachusetts as of March 2023, 2024. Well, you know what? Put him in touch with me, right? I'd love to talk to him. Fred Colon left some feedback about that segment and said, I was always interested about the Oddfellows, and I'd like to know if there are any Oddfellows lodges in the area where I live here in New Jersey. There are Oddfellows lodges in New Jersey, Mr. Colon, and go on the Grand Lodge of New Jersey website, or even I believe they also have a Facebook page. I looked into that. So I hope you do find your way into it. Odd Fellowship has, as you've seen in this podcast, here on Points of Light, you've saw me interview so many different members of the Odd Fellows and their appendant bodies and so on. It is such a wonderful organization, right? On May 27th, 2023, Mark Victoria fellowshipped with me. He's the charter monarch for the Chai 3 Grotto in Chicago, Illinois, and a member of Knox Lux Grotto in Texas. Fred Kalan left some feedback, some comments on this one. He said, as a former Master Mason, I agree that the Brotherhood is the number one thing. I belong to other organizations, lodges, and I hope to get back in touch with them when I can. Right? You let me know what happens when you do, Mr. Kalan. I think Freemasonry has so much to offer, and so many. It's not something that someone could really get bored in. June 10th, 2023. My segment was Sean Zimmerman. He was the lecturing knight of the Oregon City Elks Lodge. I love talking to this guy. Young fella involved in the Elks, and people must have agreed with me because Adlong811 left a comment that Elks are a great organization. Absolutely they are. And he said, I'm glad to see a young man being so involved, as was I. He kind of echoed my sentiments of it. It was, On June 18th, 2023, I interviewed Sir Knight Shear. He's the keeper of the flame for the Independent Order of the Knights of the Temple. Byron Boy, I believe that's how you say the name, left a comment. In other traditions, listening to a voice, word, or sound must come from the right side of the ear because the left side would lead you astray. There is a specific position on how to listen. I really don't know anything about that, but I think it's wonderful. I appreciate your feedback on that. And I'm glad to see that there are people watching. That was a very deep segment. I might also add, if you remember, I cautioned you, and as I do with some of the more esoteric and deeper, more organizations that you see here, that I said, use your spiritual discernment, because some of these things are very spiritually discerned. And I hope to feature that particular organization on here again, because I enjoy featuring organizations like that, mixing them in here, because you really see how you can have a lot of fun in fraternalism, but you can also you can go as deep into these organizations as you want. On July 3rd, 2023, I interviewed a gentleman named Victor Boyle, and he is a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians in Montreal, Quebec. He was also, I believe, in the Knights of Columbus, and I've been trying to get him back on here to talk about the Knights of Columbus. But that particular segment, as I said, was about the Ancient Order of Hibernians. Sports 872 commented that he was looking forward to finding out more about the Ancient Order of Hibernians. They were here in Scotland, but I've not heard of them for 10 to 15 years. Well, you reach out to me, and I'll try to put you in touch with some members of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. I do, right? And if they're not in Scotland anymore, well, Sports 872, it can be done. Bring them there, bring them back. On July 10th, 2023, I interviewed Jane Anima. She's the Grand Prior for the Grand Priory of Canada for the Military and Hospitaller Order of the Saint Lazarus of Jerusalem. Fred Colin commented that he'd like more information on the Military and Hospitallary Order of St. Lazarus of Jerusalem, right? And he'd like to know where there's a chapter in the United States East Coast area. They have a website that can tell you that, Fred, right? And there is, in fact, I just touched base with Jane Anima, and she did say that, did confirm that. On September 30th, 2023, I investigated 2 defunct fraternal orders. The first was the Knights of the Golden Eagle, and the second was the Sons of Malta. Julius Evans commented that he thinks that the Order of the Sons of Malta needs to be revived so people who want to be members can, without any other difficulties of joining the other fraternities. You know what? I agree with you on that. Right? And, you get in touch with me via my Facebook page, Julius, and I'll see if I can help you do that. I mean, there is someone trying to revive the Knights of the Maccabees in one way or another, and I do think it's wonderful. The rich history of those 2 organizations, the Knights of the Golden Eagle and the Sons of Malta, it's incredible. The Catholic perennialist, when I talked about the degree system with how we get these 3 degree structures, he left some comments here. He said the 3 degrees correspond with the 3 elements of the Jewish temple: 1, the outer court outer court and porch; 2, the inner sanctuary; and 3, the holiest of holies. Right, and he goes on to say some other things in there. Right, and you have seen him on here discussing this very thing. Catholic perennialist. I mean, I might use him. I might have him on here as a regular contributor. The way he'll be right up there. I have a funny feeling he is going to be right up there with my buddy Owen Snowden. Adrian Bradley commented on that particular segment. He said, he says, apart from swearing on a Bible, you don't mention the religious beliefs of the candidates for the Sons of Malta or Knights of the Golden Eagle. I think that's the idea of where the 3 degrees came from in Freemasonry, as it has degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason, tying in with the stages of life. Yes, he said, but he does admit, he says, I'm not a Freemason. But he says, I do confer degrees in 3 other fraternal orders. And you have heard, there again, you've heard me talk about him. You know what, Adrian? You and me have to do an interview. We really do, because those other fraternal orders you belong to, I love having them on here, right? Right. I did talk, though, on my July 28th segment, I talked about how faith played a much larger role in people's lives up until the 1960s. And as I've often said, with differing forms of entertainment in the welfare state, people no longer feel the need or as much need for families, lodges, and churches anymore. And Adrian, I want to reinforce that you and me, brother, we got to get together for an interview. We really do. I'd love to kick that around with you. Okay, November 13th, 2023. I discussed some much needed changes to fraternalism and the need to expand and encourage new members to join appendant fraternal bodies. Right? We really, I mean, that was a wonderful segment. I do remember that, and it did garner a fair bit of feedback by the looks of things. Just to name a few, we had Catholic perennialist there again. Remember him? He said there's a lot of guilt in the Blue Lodge for those who get their master masons and move quickly to the Shriners of the Scottish Rite. For Generation X and Y who have children at home, it's hard to justify to your wife that you need to pay multiple layers of dues to vacate the home even more often. He said, I'd like to join the Scottish Rite, but there's not enough time and money. Right? That's something me and the Catholic Perennials are going to have to discuss sometime. I'll have to save that one, actually, so him and me can get together and discuss that. Fred Kalon talked about the problem is that men and young men don't get involved with these organizations and lodges like the Masons, Elks, Moose, Eagles, etc. Even if their family members are involved, they don't have the interest. And it's a shame, and it's a loss for the community and themselves. I agree with you, Mr. Kalon, that it is, and that's one of the things I'm trying to prevent here in Points of Light Radio, is that we really, it is a shame. It's a loss for the community, and as well, these lodges are part of our history, and we really do, I still believe, need to preserve them, and that's part of what I'm trying to do here. Sergeant Rabbi said that money is no excuse for not joining an independent body, and time is definitely a hard thing to come by, but care and real support for others is lacking, he said, across mankind. I would somewhat concur with that. And as I said in the segment itself, I said that fraternalism should be something that's kept affordable for everybody, and that when money is lacking for a good potential brother or sister, that's when I think that appendant body or even their primary lodge need to step up and help them out a little bit. I really do. Right? On November 20th, 2023, I fellowshipped with Ian Robertson. He was a member of the Freemasons, and Mr. Robertson shed some light on Masonic history, right? And I also gave you a clip on where I featured Will Wilkinson, okay, from the Protestant Knights of Malta. So essentially what I did was I blended a clip from a past segment of Points of Light Radio and a clip that I'd saved up from Ian Robertson, where he was talking about some of Freemason history, right? And this one, I was really trying, in this particular segment, in this November 20th, 2023 segment, I was trying to separate Masonic historical tradition from Masonic historical fact. Adrian Bradley left some feedback, and he said, as an Orangeman and Royal Arch Purple and Black lecturer, but not a Freemason, I do see similarities between Protestant fraternal orders and Freemasonry. For instance, the five-pointed star, the square and compass, letter G in the middle, and the use of aprons. I know this because I read up on all fraternal orders, very, very emphatic about that. Also, there's parts of the Masonic degree that some Freemasons say are legends, yet I've seen stained glass window in cathedrals that depict a legendary character, yet there is no mention of him or what happened to him at King Solomon's temple in the Bible. Right? Seriously, Adrian, when are you and me going to do an interview? I keep coming back to that. You've got so much to offer here, brother, and right, we need to talk. J.T. Clark, 1892, left a comment on this particular segment, and he said, what I view is this. The loyal orders are similar to Freemasonry in the same way a Ford Fiesta is similar to a Land Rover Defender. You could say that Ford Fiesta copies the four wheels, doors, and steering wheel, but it doesn't have the industry standards. The similarities between the loyal orders and Freemasonry are just industry standards. The similarities weren't unique to Freemasonry before Orange came about. They're just the standards of fraternal orders, and he uses the reference of both orders use worthy, master, and lodge, the lodge phrases and degrees. Well, I wouldn't say they're industry standards. There's things that are unique to both, but there really is no proof that Orangism still borrowed its traditions and its degree system from Freemasonry. As I've often said, I think there were members in both lodges, and I think they borrowed each other's they borrowed each other's traditions a little, somewhat. I don't think it was just a one-way street. Moving on here. On November 27, 2023, I fellowshipped with Joseph Benton. Now, he was a fellow podcaster, belonged to the Oddfellows, but he shed light on the evolution of the rituals and degrees of the Oddfellows. He also introduced us to an exciting new branch of Odd Fellowship. And I eventually did feature them as well. But Sergeant Rabbi commented on that particular segment. He said, rituals should bring mind and spiritual benefits to the individual. That take a hold of them is sad. We don't have more people interested in doing that. Right? Quite true. I do believe that. As I put it, good degree work gives you a lesson, not just for the lodge, but for one's life. I do believe that. And I do find, as I said, when one joins the appendant bodies of things like Odd Fellowship, Freemasonry, or even the Orange Order, things like that, the degree work becomes much deeper, and I do find that, and I do enjoy that. And there's places, I believe, in lodges for both types. In December 11th, 2023, I investigated two defunct fraternal orders. First one was called the Knights of the Maccabees, so I kind of reintroduced you to them, and the Ancient Order of United Workmen. Bill Ennis, my brother, he said, I agree that rituals are extremely important. The secrecy and mystical unite brotherhood. It's actually the bond that holds everything together. The nature of degree work is one of trust. I agree with you, Bill. You go in with a certain fear, not knowing what exactly is going on, but trusting for a good outcome. You leave with an awareness. You are now part of an ancient order and part of the secrecy that surrounds it. And those are powerful observations, Brother Ennis. And, I keep saying you and me, I spoke to Bill Ennis on the phone, good preacher and good brother. He just doesn't, he's camera shy or something, just doesn't want to do an interview, but I would love to interview him. I honestly would. And maybe I can eventually talk you into that, brother. Adrian Bradley, right? He commented that I know what you mean about degrees, ritual, and what they mean. I am only in 4 fraternal orders. Is that all? He reiterates the Orange Lodge, the Royal Arch Purple, the Royal Black Institution, and the Apprentice Boys. They all have some ritualistic secrets, but the Apprentice Boys, he says, has no memorized degrees. I am in the Orange and the Royal Arch Purple and Black degree lecturer. I find it is fascinating. It's fascinating for me. If the degree work didn't exist, it's just to benefit society, for the 4 named orders, it couldn't exist. So these degrees are based on my Protestant faith and heritage. I have made inquiries about maybe joining the Oddfellows, but my nearest lodge, I think, is in Scotland. I live in Northern Ireland. Even at that, not all Oddfellows lodges do degree work and are really benefit. No, I would disagree with that. They do. Odd Fellowship lodges do degree work. They do. And if your nearest lodge is in Scotland, Adrian, you can always be a member at large, and it is possible to bring these organizations to where you are. You can actually do it. You get enough people together and enough of your brothers from the different organizations that you belong to together, and I'm sure you could bring the Oddfellows to Northern Ireland. And if you do, no way around it. You and me have to do a segment, right? On December 26th, see, I worked right through Christmas for you last year. On December 26th, Points of Light Radio fellowshipped with John Hanwright. He's the Grand Master of the Vassal Order of America. Austin Moore, 4420, commented that, I enjoyed your interview, and it was interesting to hear that this fraternity, because I'm of Norwegian blood, as he put it. My mother's family has roots in Oslo, Norway, and Olsens. Well, nothing stopped you from joining, Austin. I think you should. Adrian Bradley, 8513, commented that as a person, there again, Adrian, why haven't you and me done an interview? As a person who follows worldwide fraternal orders, I found this video very interesting, as your other fraternal orders videos are. I wonder what the word Vasa means. Maybe it's part of the fraternal secret. Well, hey, good to see that the good deeds of this organization, right? But Adrian, we have to get together. We really do. I've only really encapsulated their brothers and sisters, right? But I will say this, and I think you'll agree with me. 2023 was a really exciting year for this podcast. We covered so much ground, like we really did. I mean, right? And the things that we've learned, right? For one thing, and you heard it during when I was going through your comments where people were saying, I'd never heard of this organization or that organization before. And I think you'll agree with me, even as I've been going along here in Points of Light Radio, I've learned so much. Prime example, have you ever heard of the Order of Water Rats, or the Ratlings, or the Free Colliers, or the Rascals, Rogues, and Rapscallions? Have you ever heard of them? Right? I've heard people say that, so, and I hadn't heard of them either until I started researching for this podcast. But and I can say this, that some people have sought out and joined fraternal organizations after watching them here on Points of Light Radio. And as I'm going to say this again, I'm really proud of that. I really am, right? And I do value your feedback. I'm glad that you've been leaving more of it as we've gone along here, right? And as I go through these comment sections, I love seeing that you're leaving more of it, and I encourage you to leave more feedback. I really do, because it gives me your ideas of where to go next. And as you've seen here on different segments of Points of Light Radio, I not only value your feedback, I value it enough to sometimes not only invite people in here to interview. Like I said, Adrian, okay, I've invited you, right? But there's also some that have taken me up on the invite, like Catholic Perennialist. And I think that's wonderful, right? But, I hope you've enjoyed this particular segment of Points of Light Radio. as much as I enjoy bringing you this segment and reading your comments, right? But I'm going to leave it there. But before I go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome, I want to say this again, your comments and your input. Welcome and appreciate your comments and input. In fact, you can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure fellowshipping with you. And it's been a pleasure answering some of your comments and feedback. Until we meet again, remember, I appreciate you. And just step